Hey, my name is Cameron. Welcome to my channel, and I'm the HR guy. And today we're going to talk about interview tips. Now, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I have. I've interviewed for a position and didn't get it, and I went back to the folks that did the interviewing and said, "Hey, can you give me some tips on how I can do better the next time?" And they were gracious. They gave me some pointers, which really did help me in the next interviews that I had down the road. So we're going to do that. I've said before, in my position as an HR manager, I sit on almost every interview in our organization, and which has been probably thousands of interviews. And I often get people coming back later saying, "Hey, how can I interview better? What about this? What about that?" So we're going to kind of do that. We're going to do a question and answer format based on typical questions that I've gotten in the past. And I'm just going to kind of tell you what I would tell them if they ask me this question, which, again, a lot of people have. Again, my goal is to provide proven strategies for employment success. So let's get to it. All right, question number one. Obvious one. What should I wear to the interview? And that's going to be different depending on the position you're applying for, what level that position is, and the organization. There's a lot of organizations today, even corporate organizations, that their requirement for dress is not what it used to be in the past. So they have CEOs and managers that don't wear suit and ties. It's a little more casual, a little more laid back. Like Google, Apple. Some of those organizations like that, they don't require even their managers to dress in suits and ties and in that kind of professional type dress. So you want to know about that organization. You want to know kind of what their dress code in a sense is, what people wear when they're at work. It's also going to depend on the position. Not every position is going to require you to, again, wear, that high-level professional dress and won't require that for the interview. But oftentimes, business casual is probably going to be good enough for most interviews. A good rule of thumb is it's better to overdress than underdress. So, even if the position doesn't require you to wear even business casual at work, wearing that for the interview is probably appropriate. It's going to set you apart a little bit. Okay, so next question is, when should I arrive for my interview? How early should I be there? Well, first of all, if you're on time, you're late, right? So be early. A good rule of thumb is 10 to 15 minutes. That's going to give you time to kind of calm down, get yourself ready for the interview. If you need water or use the restroom, it gives you time to do that and still have plenty of time to get yourself prepared to go into the interview room. The only time you'd show up any earlier than that really would be if they asked you to be early for some reason, maybe to fill out some forms, or they had a task that they wanted you to do for the interview panel or the interviewer. Other than that, 10 to 15 minutes is a good rule of thumb. What should I bring to the interview? Well, one is bring a bottle of water, because sometimes you're going to need that. Your mouth gets dry as you're getting nervous, ready to go in there, and you may not always have access to water. So, especially in today, bring your own bottle of water. Bring a nice portfolio, notepad, and a pen. Again, as you're sitting there, you may be able to think of some things, jot down some notes. Sometimes you may also get the questions ahead of time that they're going to ask you, so you can make yourself some notes on how to answer those. Bring extra resumes on nice paper. If it's a panel interview or even just a single person, and they may ask for your resume, or you can say, "Hey, did you want to look at this again?" Just making sure you have some available is good to have. You may not need them, but it's better to have them than not. How do I make a good impression on the interview panel, or how do I connect with the interview panel? Because sometimes you're going to come in a room, it's going to be 4 or 5 people, or even just the interviewer. How do I make a good connection with them? First of all, you want to be personal. You want to come in, shake hands if it's appropriate. If sometimes the room setting's not going to really create that. If it's a panel where you can go around and shake everybody's hands, you want to make eye contact. You want to smile. You want to just kind of be yourself. Kind of just initially make everybody feel comfortable. when you walk in. Be confident in yourself and your ability, because obviously you have what they're looking for, at least on paper. You have the skills and abilities and education because you got screened in, but also be humble. Help them to see that you're confident because of the hard work you've done, but you're also not, arrogant. Another one is, how can I answer questions better? And this is one I get a lot. People will interview and they don't get the position, and they'll want to come back and say, how could I do better in the interview? And that's really kind of what they're asking, is how can I answer those questions better? So one is, obviously, do your research on the company, do your research on the position, read through that job description, take some time really to look at your own resume, your own skills and abilities, and how they apply to this position, how they're going to help you be prepared to handle this role. Any special, skills that you've had or trainings or anything like that will also help, that you can apply those to answers that are appropriate. And the biggest thing is practice and prepare. The more you practice and prepare for the interview, the better you're going to be able to answer those questions. There's a lot of questions that are common questions that people are going to ask. So I'll drop a couple links to some common questions you may get. But do some research online. What are some common questions that they may ask? Or even, sometimes if it's a large corporation like Starbucks or maybe even Google or some of that, you can look up what kind of typical questions they may ask in their interviews, and be prepared to answer those questions and practice that, and that'll help you to be better when that time comes. Kind of along the same lines, there's another question: how can I be less nervous in an interview? Oftentimes people are prepared, but then they get so nervous that they forget what they're going to say. They stumble over their answers. They kind of have a brain freeze, and then therefore they just kind of go around in a circle and maybe not really answer the question very well. So they don't present themselves as confident and knowledgeable as they may be. So again, practice. The more you practice anything, the better you're going to be prepared, and the less nervous you're going to be when you actually get in that position. Spend time preparing for the interview with someone else. If you can have them ask you questions, and then they can maybe give you some feedback on how you did. Will also help. Get to the interview early, because one thing that'll make you nervous is if you're, late to the interview, or just showing up just on time, and you just get there and they call you in and you didn't have time to kind of calm yourself down and get yourself kind of mentally prepared. So the more you can do to be early, to give yourself that time to just get yourself in the right mindset, the better you're going to do, and the less nervous you're typically going to be. And the other thing is, believe in yourself. I mean, obviously you got this interview because you had the skills they're looking for. You had the experience they're looking for. So be confident in that you are someone that they would want to hire, that you have the ability. And show that in your answers. Confidently answer things. Obviously, you're going to have some experience and knowledge that's going to help you be able to answer these questions well, and do that. Answer the questions thoroughly. Give examples that are applicable to the role that you're applying for, that you're going to be doing in that organization, and that's going to also show that you're confident that you can transition from where you're currently working into this new role. Now the question is, what happens if I bomb a question? Maybe you get a question and maybe it wasn't something you expected, and you didn't really know how to answer it. Maybe you didn't have experience in that specific area, or your brain just froze up and you just freaked out a little bit and just started rambling on about who knows what. Best thing to do is forget about it. Move on to the next question. Maybe even laugh it off, even say, my brain just froze up there for a second. I apologize, and just be ready for the next questions. One question is not going to, tank your interview, but it can if you let it affect the rest of the questions. So the next question, just move on. Forget that one happened, and answer the best you can as you continue to move forward in that interview process. They're going to see that. They're going to know you were a little nervous. They're going to take that into account, as long as you can answer the rest of the questions pretty well. and do your best. And the other thing is, don't give up. Don't let that one question derail you for the rest of the interview, especially if it's an early question, one of the first two or three. There's a lot of questions to go, so don't let that get you down and make you feel like you've already lost your opportunity. All right, another question is, how do I sell myself without sounding like I'm arrogant, like I think I'm the best thing ever? One, again, is focus on your skills, abilities, and experience that has prepared you for that position. Focus on, the work that you've done that got you here. Focus on what you bring to the table that's going to help that organization reach its goals. Again, when you're focusing on what they're trying to accomplish rather than what you personally want to accomplish, that's going to show that you're a team player. You're focused on helping the organization move forward. That's your goal, is really to help them reach their goals. Talk about how you work well with a team. You're good at communication. All those things are going to show them that it's, you don't think it's just about you. It's really about what you can do to help that organization in your role really reach their goals. Another one is, should I have questions to ask at the end of the interview? And if so, kind of what should they be about? Well, yes, you should have some questions to ask. Most of the time, they're going to say, hey, do you have any questions for us when you're at the end of the interview? And you want to be able to have something. One is you could ask about what are the next step in this interview process, and how long, should I expect before I hear back? Because that also helps you not to get nervous and worried about, well, if they don't call me the next day, if they give you a time frame of, hey, it's going to be next week before you hear anything, that way you can kind of, prepare yourself that not to expect to hear anything right away. You can also ask, what's the best thing about working for this organization? And that's a good question for you to see kind of how they talk about the organization, the pride they maybe have in that organization, and also if this is a place you really want to work. If they don't have a lot of great things to say and you're like, well, they didn't really talk about why they like working there, maybe it's not a place you want to work. So, if they were to offer you the position and now you've had some time to think about it, maybe you don't accept that if it feels like this is not an organization that people are really happy to be at. The other thing is you could ask is, what are they looking for in a candidate for this position? Again, that'll kind of help you know if you're checking the boxes, so to speak, of what they're looking for, and give you a little more confidence maybe about if you're really a good fit for that organization. And lastly, you could ask, where does the organization see themselves in 5 to 10 years? And again, that's going to give you an opportunity to say, hey, is this an organization I want to work in because I also want to see myself kind of moving in that direction over the next 5 to 10 years? They have a plan. They know where they're going. They know how they're going to get there, that kind of thing. So again, it will give you another idea of, is this really the place I want to be, especially for the next 5 to 10 years? And last is, should I follow up with thank you email? Yeah, you should. And usually you should try to get that out within the next 24 hours after your interview. Now, that being said, most of the time, they're going to already have their decision made before they get your email. They're going to stay probably after they've done all the interviews for that day, especially if they've completed them. And they're going to make their selection their first, second, third choice usually, and you may not be one of those, and that's okay even if you send the email and you're not, or you are. But what it does is, one is it shows that you were thankful for the opportunity to interview with them, that you're excited about the possibility of working for this organization, and that you are taking the time to follow up. And so let's say you don't get this position, but the organization may say, and the interviewers may say, gosh, we really like this person. They just maybe weren't the best fit for this role, but we know we have a couple other positions coming up down the road. We'd like to maybe consider this person for one of those. So they may reach out to you and say, hey, thanks for interviewing for us. You didn't get this position, but we have a couple more we are going to have coming up soon. We encourage you to apply for those positions because we see that you might be a good fit. And so that gives you another opportunity to maybe work for that organization, even if you didn't get the initial job that you interviewed for. First of all, I hope this information was helpful. If it was, please hit that like button and the subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you like this format, drop me a note in the comment section, because this is something that I'm trying that's a little different, but it may be something I could do in some future videos as well, if it's applicable. And again, I appreciate you sticking with me. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.